Welcome to Athletes, Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources into health and finance and career. And we interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their journey, their transition out of sport, ultimately into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. And it's such a major issue today that athletes face with mental health issues and financial literacy. But we're so excited today to have Ben Utecht on. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great, Rob. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So I'm excited. When I start talking about all the things Ben does, my head's spinning like we're going through this before. So Ben played football at University of Minnesota. Ultimately, he had a successful career in the NFL with the Colts and the Bengals. Talked a little bit offline about playing with Peyton Manning. And then when he got done with that, this is kind of interesting. So he got into singing and speaking. Speaking, I understand. Motivational singing. He's going to tell us more about that. That's kind of cool. Then he's done various things. Very entrepreneurial in spirit. He's the chief cultural officer. He's a global speaker. Does some of the singing he did for a while. He's kind of cut back a little bit on it, but and then he's an entrepreneur with multiple companies. But he's the founder of SoleCareRx, which is going to be pretty cool to hear about that. So Ben, talk about growing up playing sports. How did that shape you leading up into college?
Man, I think one of the best foundations of sports are the holistic life lessons that it gives young adults. Collaboration, hard work, endurance, perseverance, courage, humility, empathy. I mean, the list goes on and on. The value principles that exist within professional sports are so powerful. And the belief system that generates those value principles and really is incorporated into the coaching style of healthy coaches can have a transformational impact on the athlete.
That's a great answer. I get very yes, but that was good. That was very, very thorough. It hit a lot of key points that we'll talk about. So let's fast forward now to college. So when you were in college, we talk a lot about the transition out of sport. Was there education, whether it be workshops or any classes that kind of talked about like what's next when sports were over?
Man, testing my memory a little bit, but I would say there were resources. I think a lot of the challenge is really the education of what those resources are and how to access them. And then most importantly, Rob, is how do you inspire the athlete to understand deeply the importance of those resources? You know, because at that age, your focus is immature at times, right? You're focused on things that are not, connected to long-term identity and success. And so you can easily cast aside those individuals there to support you or those resources there to support you. So, I think that there were more opportunities available. I just didn't connect to the importance of those resources at the time.
Yeah, and I think it's happening more. Schools are, and I know University of Minnesota. We had Stephen Davis on the podcast, and he's there, and he talked a lot about that. So I think things are changing, which is good. But you hit a key point there. It's just these athletes are young, and you're playing, and you're invincible, and you're more about if it's football, how am I going to get to the NFL, or how am I going to be a Major League Baseball player, or whatever the sport might be. But what do you think? Kind of like looking back, or if you were to mentor from that perspective, what would kind of catch an athlete's mindset at that age? There is going to be like better sports.
Well, culture is the leader's choice. I talk about it all the time. And so you have to build a culture of inspiration and education around these important resources, whether it's financial literacy, whether it's career path. There are so many opportunities to be able to educate your athletes more consistently. And it's just not, I can't speak for the time period that we're in because I'm not in those locker rooms. But during my generation, there wasn't a lot of consistency around applying that education into the game plan agenda, if you will, or the athletic strategy. And I think incorporating a culture of inspiration and education into the athletic strategy would be a very beneficial thing. And that inspiration side, Rob, is so important, right? Because the definition of a movement is a singular or community belief turned into action. So you have to get these players to believe in the support and the resources that are available to them. And the best way to do that is storytelling, which coaches are really good at. So imagine being able to bring some more consistency around inspiring through story and educating those athletes on the future.
Yeah, no, I like that, and I think it's yeah, because the other thing I talk about too is that we've talked about going into universities and going to the athletic department and trying to help develop additional curriculum in those areas like we just talked about with financial literacy and health and career and all that, and not only for the current athletes but for the alumni athletes as well. Because I think it's like once you are done with your sport, even if you are fortunate enough to play professionally, you still, then there's the next step. So it'd be great to know that if you go back to your alma mater and kind of tap into some type of workshops or classes to really help, I think that would be beneficial, even when it comes to recruiting. We talk about, 'cause I mean, think about if we've got kids that are high school age and we're looking at different schools, and that this one school is going to not only care about your athlete when they're there, but also when they're an alumni. I think that becomes really important.
Yeah, 100%. I was just thinking to myself, there's pursuit is a challenging principle, because when you have to pursue upstream, it's always a more difficult endeavor. When you're pursued from downstream, the acceptance rate skyrockets, right? So I think one thing that would be great within the alumni category is to really inspire successful alumni to be mentors and to participate in platforms that are reaching out and pursuing those that might be downstream a little bit on their career path. And that access to those successful leaders will be, I think, embraced on a greater scale.
Yeah, I think it's good way to parlay into talking a little bit alumni engagement. Yeah, I think that's so important, and that we've talked to some Division II, Division III athletic departments, and they really want to re-engage their alumni athlete to come back and athletes to come back. And one of the things that we talk about is that imagine creating a monthly networking event, and it could be online. I mean, obviously it's more powerful when you're there, but if it's online, where each month you bring back one of your alumni athletes and kind of do a format similar to what you and I are doing right now, just kind of having a conversation about when they were there as an athlete, and then kind of their transition out of sport, and ultimately what they're doing today, and then opening it up to networking after that. So now you've got this, you've got the credibility of this athlete, that, back to what you just said too, is having success in the real world, so to speak, and then they can parlay that and mentor these current athletes. So let's when you were there at school, was there any movement to bring athletes back other than the homecoming game and the golf tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was very segmented when I was playing, and what I mean by that is very event based, right? You're going to have a 3 or 4 alumni events a year, whether it's the annual team dinner at the end of the year or the spring game, those types of opportunities, versus kind of creating that culture of consistency. But I would tell you that one of the things that I've heard, especially about the Minnesota Gophers today under the leadership of PJ Fleck, and what I've experienced as a former alumni, is there's been a significant increase in the pursuit of of alumni activation and attention, and they're getting better at it. And I think it's something that's been celebrated and very beneficial to the program.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I bring up this example for myself, as I was on a call with my school, Delaware, and I had one of our Hall of Fame athletes who played 10 years in the NFL, and we're talking to the athletic department. They don't have the bandwidth, and it was just kind of like, he said, tap me in. I'd love to come back and mentor and help the current. And they just, they never reached back out. And I think it's just, and me too, being an athlete from the school, is just like, I'm willing to give back. And I think, it's got to be a two-way street. Obviously, the athlete, needs to want to come back, but I think there needs to be more of a movement, maybe, to bring it back. And it seems like it's dependent on the coaches. It might be dependent on the athletic director, but there's a lot of times there's changes that might not happen.
Yeah, I call it the culture of reciprocity. You have to see value in it. You have to see like you're getting a value return for the energy that you're putting into the efforts to create a stronger alumni platform. And I think that takes time, and it takes a team, right? It takes money. Anytime you build a system, my favorite acronym for system is save yourself time, energy, and money. Right. So time, energy, and money is always a part of it. And so it does Does the value add of that time, energy, and money, is that reciprocal to the importance of what has to happen on the field in order for the program to be successful? And there's always going to be that tension there.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. So let's look at kind of from an NFL perspective. And I mean, I know all the leagues are different in how they handle their alumni. And I know I was somebody schooled me one time. I guess the NFL was it the NFL alumni, but then the NFL Players Association, they're kind of like two competing factions within the alumni space. Talk a little about that and maybe some of the things that the NFL is trying to do to help athletes, once they're done, and not just the stars, but also some of these guys that might have just came up and played on the practice squad or not too long.
Well, again, it kind of comes back to what I said previously about being inspired and being educated on what the resources are. So the NFL and the NFL Players Association both have a tremendous amount of resources. When you look at the NFL side, you have the NFL Legends business community. You have a group called Ascending Athletes, which works alongside the NFL to create regional and Super Bowl events, bringing current and former players together who are interested in business and growing their businesses and growing as business leaders. The NFL Players Association has the Trust, and the Trust is full of all sorts of different educational resources. I am surprised when I talk to former alumni, more conversations than not where I've shared about some of the resources that I've been consistently using, and they never knew it existed, right? So there's always some kind of a disconnect that happens, between what the resources are and how do you get connected to them and utilize them for your life and for your business. And so, but the resources are there, and they definitely put a lot of time into doing whatever they can to empower, their current and former players.
That's great. I mean, I think, and I'm sure the NFL is probably a good example. I mean, you just hear like one of the areas I've heard too, like from a baseball perspective, is they say there's not a lot of attention to the minor league players. And so there's a lot of struggle where they play, and, again, unless they were fortunate enough to make it to Major League Baseball, a lot of them might be in and out of the minor league baseball and then just not having the support that they need. And so that's some of the things that we're kind of looking at with Alumni Direct, is just trying to find ways that we can have this platform for the athletes or for the particular, whether it be the leagues or individual teams, whatever it might be.
Yes.
So let's talk about networking, connecting, and obviously that's something that's real important. Talk about um, the importance of doing it while you're playing, and I think it'd be interesting to get your perspective both from in college as well as professionally.
Yeah. I've heard phrases like use the shield, right? You've got the NFL shield, use it. And I think when I was coming out of college, I mean, that was the dawn of the early days of the smartphone, right? And social media marketing. And so there wasn't a lot of education around how to do that successfully, right? And then that really exploded when I was in the NFL. And when you're playing, it's important. And John Maxwell talks about how, or defines leadership as influence. And so when you're a current player and you're participating at a collegiate, high collegiate or professional level, the influence that you have is more significant, right? It's more relevant to the moment at hand, and I think it's important for people to understand that and to use that to their advantage. And then, obviously, depending on your career, that influence is impacted when you transition out, but it's still relevant. It's still there, and so you still have an opportunity. I mean, you can see it from so many professional athletes that have gone on to have very successful careers in entertainment and business, and they understand that. They understand that truth and they take advantage of it.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess one of the things that comes up a lot with networking too is within sports. It seems like a lot of it, on the outside in at least, it appears to be siloed. So kind of like the football players are pretty much just hanging out and networking with the football players, the baseball, basketball. And I know some of it has to do with scheduling, like in college, because you're on different time schedules. But talk a little about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's understandable. I mean, you are very compartmentalized in an athletic department, and you spend the majority of your time with your own team and your own teammates. So that's where you're going to foster the most meaningful relationships. Is there cross-pollination between teams? Absolutely. It comes through educational resources that you get from college tutoring or study sessions, leadership group meetings that are multi-team faceted. So there are a number of platforms that bring athletes from different sports together, but also at the same time, when you're spending so much time with your own individual players, that's where your relationship focus is. But when you think about it, when you step outside of performance and what your job and role is, would there be benefit in being able to make stronger connections between those teams and bringing multiple athletes with multiple belief systems and perspectives and opinions and passions together? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is that I always say there's like a common, the athlete DNA or the athlete skill set. Obviously, the skills, some of the skills pertain to your sport, but you've been playing since you've grown up. I mean, a lot of these athletes, depending on the sport, I mean, they might have started at 5, 6 years old. They played all the way up, and it's the teamwork, it's the practice, it's the preparation, everything that goes into athlete. It's cool. Like I talk about a lot. I do a monthly networking event for my podcast guests, and what we do is I'll have maybe 10 to 15 on an event and across all sports. I mean, you've got NFL players, Major League Baseball, you've got swimmers, you've got soccer players, wrestlers, team handball. I mean, it's across the gamut. But it's just kind of cool to see everybody networking together, saying, how can we roll up our sleeves and help each other with our business? And I think it's just that kind of like you have that alumni affinity. You've got this affinity as an athlete. So you know what it takes to be an athlete, what you've gone through. So now you've got that commonality and you're working together. So I see a lot of value there.
Yeah, this challenge in networking just kind of entered my mind, so I'll throw it out there. But I think one of the things that would make networking more effective is intentionality and accuracy. Because as I'm getting more and more entrepreneurial, my time availability is less and less and less. It would be easy for me to fill up my week full of Zoom calls with networking connections that you know that just have no benefit to what I'm trying to accomplish, right? Great people, great to make a new connection and a new relationship, but not effective in really helping me reach the outcomes that are important, in my life, right? And so that's something that's, I think, and I know you guys, your platform does this, and I think bringing data into the mix and doing a good job of being intentional around why you're connecting people, through understanding what their goals are, what their desired outcomes are, I think could be really helpful.
Yeah, no, that's great. I totally agree. I mean, I think it's and you're right. I mean, you can all day long you can set appointments, and I'm just as guilty of that sometimes too. And in your shoes too, as an entrepreneur, it's you got to find the best route for your time. And I guess what seeing in that with across the sport is just having that same mentality, and it would just be the same thing as an alumni too. I mean, we always talk about too with networking, even starting at a young age. I mean, you're playing with your teammates. It could be their parents, it could be coaches. I mean, there's people out there, and like you said, especially like NFL showing that shield, it opens up the doors to possibilities. And so I guess as long as you're intentional and what's going to, be beneficial, not only obviously for you, but for them as well, it's all about, paying it forward and helping people too. So that's cool. So let's talk about, I always have the two questions. And I don't know if you got a chance to heard them on the podcast and got to prepare it all. If you can go back in time, so a little back to the future action here, and you can go back to freshman Ben at Minnesota, 10 words or less, what advice would you give to
Well, if I had the flux capacitor with
him?
with 1.21 gigawatts, and if I could go back in time and speak to myself, number one, I would say take school more seriously. Don't put all your eggs in the football basket. Like, understand the importance of education, right? Because wisdom is such a powerful value principle, and we don't talk about it enough, right? It's very paradoxical. How do you gain more wisdom? And it only comes through knowledge and experience. And so I'd go back to myself and say, take your education, take the importance of knowledge more seriously.
Yeah, that's good. It's funny because a lot of times when I ask that question, and it's, some people have already watched the podcast, so they know I'm going to ask the question, so they're kind of preparing. But the different answers, do I like what version am I giving here? Am I giving the PG version? Am I giving the other version? Like, what am I looking at? So that was good. And then, yeah, fast forward to senior Ben. What advice would you give to him?
I would I would remind senior Ben that your purpose and significance as a human is much bigger than a sport. You know, that your identity and the impact that you can have in the world and on people is much bigger than a game. You know, and I think you have a lot of people suffering in the transition because their identity is as an athlete. And so I experienced that, you know, on certain levels, and so I think that would be something I would hope we can inspire and educate, you know, senior athletes to consider.
Yeah, no, that's so important. So let's you kind of went through two transitions. So you went through a transition like, okay, I'm done playing college ball. Maybe talk a little bit about that, like just the transition from college to the NFL and what you experienced there.
Well, I was in a position as a highly ranked tight end, and I think there was a real opportunity for me to be a mid to late first round, early second round pick. Unfortunately, I had a pretty significant injury 2/3 of the way through my senior year, which changed the trajectory of my process to get to the NFL. But, you know, thankfully, because of Tony Dungy and the Indianapolis Colts and their belief in my abilities when I'm healthy, you know, it resulted in an amazing opportunity and to be on the right team at the right time. And I would also say too, Rob, that just growing up my dad was a pastor. I grew up in a very faith-centric family, and so all through that time period, you know, the teaching and the coaching around where your value truly comes from, what is your purpose, what is your identity, what are your passions, and what are you doing to pursue those passions, had had already began to cultivate in my heart the opportunities that existed outside of football. And I carried those into football so that when football retired, even though the transition hasn't necessarily been easy, at least I, with clarity, articulated what are the platforms and the passions that I have that I can start to build and run with, exiting the sport that I've played since third, fourth grade.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the foundation was there, and then it made your transition out of the NFL easier because you were already kind of processing and the values and everything you were taught and the way you grew up. So that's great. What advice would you give to athletes now? Because again, we know there's a lot of athletes that truly struggle when they're done because what you mentioned before, they look at themselves, their identity is that sport. Any words of advice, whether it's when they're transitioning out here at college or as a professional athlete?
Again, right? So if you can believe that your identity is much bigger than a sport, and if you are looking to gain wisdom so that you can make the best decisions for your life, then you have to be a continuous learner. You have to be someone that pursues knowledge and use the influence to create experiences that help you grow as a human being, right? You're enhancing your knowledge, you're enhancing your experiences, and through that process, you're gaining more wisdom and insights on what your future can look like. And so it is I wouldn't say it's at conflict with, but that parallel relationship, can create tension because one opposes the other with time, energy, and money, right? And but that relationship is so important. So I would just say, like, for athletes that are beginning to exit their college career, right, this is the time for you to, while you're playing. Same with NFL players, as you're getting ready for retirement or exiting due to unforeseen situations, putting that time, energy, and money into gaining more knowledge and more experience around what you're passionate about is going to unlock doors that you can walk through with influence into where you'll spend the majority of your life. And that's in whatever career path you have after sports.
Yeah, just I always talk about the nuggets, and you packed in a lot of good nuggets there for everyone. So you transition out, and let's talk a little bit about yeah, because I touched on it briefly, but you got into a singing career, like out of, well, were you still doing it while you were playing too, right? You'd
I
started.
was, yeah. I was, yeah. It was. I grew up in a family that celebrated athletics and the arts. My dad was a vocal music major to be a choir teacher before becoming a pastor. And so I grew up trained and pursued that in college and began singing professionally in college. That opened up doors into the NFL. In fact, my first preseason game against the Buffalo Bills, I sang the national anthem. So I actually entered the NFL as a singer before actually playing a single snap. I'm probably the only player in professional sports history to do that.
That's really
So
cool. How
yeah,
did you feel
so
with that?
well, I felt great because I love singing the national anthem and I crush it and I did crush it and I think it was you know my teammates didn't didn't know what was going to happen and the coaches didn't know, so it was kind of a really cool moment to step out on a big stage in that way. That was shocking, and that led to a record deal halfway through my Indianapolis career. And so it gave me a lot of peace to know that this is one of the avenues that I'm gonna pursue.
That's really cool. That's cool. What kind of music again? Because I know we talked about offline, but
I did 6 albums. I dabbled in a number of different genres from, Christian inspirational to, pop country, adult contemporary, pop classical, which is probably my sweet spot, that Josh Groban, Michael Bublé world, so yeah, a lot of different forms.
yeah. So everybody's got to look them up and go on YouTube and listen to. Some of those are going. Where do you buy? Where do you buy music these days? Like you just go to Pandora and
I
other.
don't even, yeah. I mean, a lot of the music is on Spotify, a number of viral music videos. Yeah, so just it's all out there in the ether of the music entertainment world.
All right, good deal. And then you also got into public speaking, which you're still doing today. I guess just doing this whole podcast with you, I could see how I'm sure it's pretty inspirational when people listen to you speak. So, I mean, you just got a lot of great things to say. And that's also parlayed into books, which again, you had my head spinning when you tell me all this stuff because I know there was like, you got to write a book, you got to write a book. I'm like, I don't know, I just don't have the time to write a book. And my son writes, so like he's a sports writer, so it's kind of like, well, he could be my ghostwriter maybe.
Yeah, the book process, I'm the same way. It's tough for me to sit down and go. But the process today can move really quickly, or you can just chip away. The tough thing is to just get started. And I would tell you, for me, the best starting point was to write the chapters of the book, write the themes, just to type. Ask yourself, what's my story, and then what are the themes. And once you have that, now you've got a Word doc outline for what this book could be.
That's cool. And then now with ChatGPT, you could probably throw some stuff in there and get the whole thing knocked
Well,
out.
and with with the self-publishing capabilities of today, I mean, and honestly, with the shift in a kind of our attention as a culture, you don't need to write a 300-page book. A 100-page book would be amazing because people can pick that up and they can digest it quickly, and so I think it doesn't have to be as overwhelming as it might feel.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. So then, you pretty much got into, it seems like a big portion now is entrepreneurship and you got that entrepreneurship bug. Talk about how athletics, your background kind of put you into that world of entrepreneurship.
Well, it was a journey that has happened over the last 13 years, and it's been fostered in a lot of ways through networking, as we've talked a lot about today, and meeting the right people, surrounding yourself with people that have strengths that you don't, and having the humility to recognize those growth areas in yourself. Um, from being an inspirational, motivational speaker to being given the opportunity to become a chief culture officer and learn the operational side of culture, which has, I think, elevated my credibility as a speaker. So all of these things really kind of have led me. And then being surrounded by those business leaders, many of them entrepreneurs, then you get brought into opportunities and you get introduced to ideas that could make an impact in the marketplace. And so it's been a long transition, but a very educational and effective process to get me to where I am today.
All right. And so now let's talk about a little about SoleCore RX.
Soul Care. Yeah. So
SoleCare, my bad.
yeah, no, that's all right. Soul Care is it's a great example of innovation and surrounding yourself with great business minds. I sustained a foot infection playing for the Bengals that I got from the shower facility wearing flip-flops, and I thought there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a disposable way that I can protect my feet, because the unbelievable reality is that anywhere a foot touches tile, it should have coverage. And so I patented the world's first ever disposable antibacterial and fungal shower sock, something that is out of sight, out of mind, but can positively impact the hygiene of every person in the world. And you can put it on, you can wash your foot through it. The technology repels bacteria and fungus, and then you can recycle it. And so we set out on this journey to launch a product that has never existed in the marketplace. And it's been just a highly educational journey. And so, only time will tell. We're going to keep working hard, and we're going to really start to market and push this out to the public soon. And we'll see how they respond.
That's great. Well, I wish you the best of luck. And how will people be able to get it?
Currently, it's for sale online at showersock.com. Hopefully, very soon on Amazon, and then we're starting to launch our direct-to-consumer marketing platforms, so that there'll be multiple ways in which that you can buy the product.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great product. I mean, anytime you get into the whole health issues and all that, like you said, and all it takes is one infection like that could definitely derail somebody, depending how bad it is. And you're right. I mean, you just think about all the public places that people go. And I know we talked a little offline about just going in there with with flip flops or whatever. But I mean, there is a difference to that. So how can people find you?
Best way to find me is benutechtspeaks.com. That will give you everything you need to know about my current platform. It's a fantastic website. We just launched my new speaker reel, which is A-class. It's like a Hollywood movie preview on what I do as a speaker. You got to check it out. And then obviously, if you're interested in the shower sock, that's showersock.com. But there's a lot of different ways that you can connect with me. I'm very accessible on LinkedIn, so please reach out, and look forward to making that connection.
Yeah, and this has been great. I mean, I talk about this each week is this we have so many great guests like Ben, and just sharing their story and their journeys is inspirational. I mean, it's as I mentioned at the beginning, it's such a tremendous issue today with athletes transition in sport, and some of them are fortunate to not have issues, but a lot of them do. And so we want to inspire as many as we can. I always say like hopefully we get, at least get one. But you can find us on alumnidirect.com, and Athletes, Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey is on our YouTube channel, as well as across all the different networks like Spotify and Apple. And I just encourage people to listen and follow. Just hopefully we can make an impact. So Ben, thanks. This has been great.